We are set to announce our first signing under Enzo Maresca. Today, my friends, we have some massive reports to discuss surrounding defender news and, most importantly, what is happening with our efforts to sign a striker. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Do not forget to watch all the latest content that I've released over the past week. Tons of big stories. Hit that like button, share your thoughts and opinions, and let's start tackling today's reports. So naturally, let's tackle this afternoon's massive story surrounding Tosin Adarabioyo. As confirmed by Romano, The Athletic, and a ton of big media outlets, not only are we now in advanced stages and talks with Adarabioyo, not only are we now the favourites to beat Newcastle to his signature, but we are incredibly close to striking a deal, and at the moment, he is set to become Enzo Maresca's first signing as our new manager. Now, why exactly have we targeted Tosin Adarabioyo? That's for a few reasons. Number one, he has Premier League experience. His height is favoured too. He's strong aerially. He's 6'5". Most importantly, he comes from Man City's academy. He's worked under Guardiola. His way of playing out from the back, being that defender that initiates the attacks for his teams by helping kickstart the build-up phase, and the fact that he's a very comfortable passer of the ball with progressive passes, line-breaking passes, and switchboard tacks as well. The fact that he has that experience working under structures and patterns of play at Man City suits him quite nicely now to work under Enzo Maresca as he's set to become our new manager. So they're the main footballing reasons as to why Tosin Adarabioyo is seen as a pretty good player to sign, especially as he replaces Thiago Silva on a free, and most likely he replaces Trevor Chalobah, who's attracting tons of interest from Man United and from Europe as well. I think another thing we can't forget too is that by signing Adarabioyo, it means that we can maintain our homegrown status quo. That's something that we must oblige to every season. Of course, he's come through the academy setup in this country, so there's another reason why we are targeting him, because we need to fill those numbers up. So I guess ultimately now, this is where I give my thoughts and opinions behind the deal, because for me, I see it in two ways. I see the business sense, and then I see the principles behind the deal. Let's start with the business sense first, because essentially, you're replacing a player in Thiago Silva who's left on the free. You're set to replace Trevor Chalobah, who you'll earn, pure profit from by selling him later this summer. And you're replacing both of them for a defender who's arriving in the prime years of his career at 26 years old, who has that Premier League experience that has been looked at by a ton of Premier League clubs. And essentially, you're flipping other players to replace a player with maybe similar experience for next to nothing. And the main thing is, if Tosin Adarabioyo don't work out in the next 12 to 18 months, you are now set to earn more money because he will be worth something if you sell him in the future. You're earning more pure profit in the future if he doesn't work out. And let's be serious with things. We aren't signing someone who's set to become the new first choice defender in the team. I keep saying stop forgetting about Wesley Fofana. Don't be fooling yourself into saying things like he's injury prone. He's not getting ACLs for fun. Let's not forget we gave a big contract to Levi Colwill, Badia Shield, Disasi, and most likely we're signing a big defender later this summer, and they'll probably take the priority over a Tosin Adarabioyo, who's essentially been signed as a squad player. I think that's the nature behind this deal. So yes, things like his height could be seen as the main advantage behind the signature, but let's keep things real. Injuries permitted. I'm not expecting Adarabioyo to get 50 games plus next season, not when the priority is set to be on other defenders, as well as the fact that one of those defensive positions may be occupied now by a fullback that inverts. So from a pure business point of view, targeting a move for a player on a free contract who's approaching his prime, if he don't work out, you could flip him on in the future for at least 20 mil minimum, maybe 30 million, depending on how he performs playing for us. So let's see how things go. Am I necessarily excited by this news? To be honest with you, I do think it's overkill, because this is where the other part of this conversation comes into play now, and that is the principles behind the move. Because from a sporting football opinion and perspective, if you're placing football here and business here, yeah, we're essentially replacing a Trevor Chalobah, someone that is a lot more versatile, someone that can play in different positions to a high level, someone that would actually suit and complement Enzo Maresca because he has that ability to also invert as well to in midfield. You're replacing him to sign someone who's not as good as him and someone who's older than him. Listen, we can gas ourselves up into saying, like we always do every single summer, nah, Nini, you're not seeing it properly, right? This guy, he's set to be levels. We did the same thing with Axel Disasi last summer, where no one could see any flaws or any faults. He was set to be like another astute signing, and long term, this would all make sense. Fast forward to the end of the season, and a lot of the fan base, to some people, they don't even want Disasi. They feel like he should never have been signed. They think this is overkill, and this is what happens when you don't have that long-term foresight. So I just think to myself, why are we getting rid of a player that has come through this club since he was a kid, that knows the club, who is consistently reliable in his performances? Why is he being discarded and undermined and overlooked to hire some token business transfer, in my opinion? Because that's how I see things, honestly. And I remember this because throughout the years, I remember the famous example being when we signed Ross Barkley on a free. I was like, this is going to be such a flop move. I was a bit disappointed by the business. At the time, the same type of reasonings and perspectives that are being applied to Adarabioyo were used on Barkley, and let's be serious, they're forever used on whoever the new shiny object is when we sign them. So I'm not too sure about this. I feel like really in defense, unless you're planning on selling someone like, I don't know, a Badia or a Disasi or Cucurella, whatever, to then replace them with someone else, I really feel like defense is probably the last area in the team we have to really invest a lot of money into, because as I keep stressing, we're likely to see a fullback taking up one of these defensive positions due to their ability to invert. So what is the need to have like 6 defenders? I don't really understand that, especially when you're now replacing squad players, especially when you have a squad player who is incredibly valuable, that knows the club, is part of that old identity. And it just, I don't know, it just doesn't sit right with me. It's just like, I understand and I've agreed with a lot of the business and the decision making in terms of like restructuring, signing players. At times I think it's overkill. At times I think we are overspending, buying more players than we actually need. And I wish like sometimes we respected the foundations that were built at this club before a lot of these new guys who took over came in. I use Real Madrid as the prime footballing example every single time because for me they are the pinnacle of football for a reason. Their squad consists of exciting young talents, world-class established players, experience, youth, homegrown players, and most importantly, players that come through their academy. I don't think the plan forever has to be, unless you're first team material in a Levi Cole or Reece James, that's the only time you'll be taken seriously if you're an academy grad. I don't think that's the right message, because when you're now negotiating for squad players, when these are positions that could be filled up from players you already have, I'm just a bit uncomfortable with that in my opinion. And my main concern is, don't even think about the short term in Jalaba, but think about the long term implications. We have some incredibly exciting talents coming from the under 18s and under 16s in particular. I'm talking about potential next great generations that rival the generations that had your Jameses, that had your Rubens, that had your Hudson-Odois, a lot of these players. And I just think, what opportunities or what messages are we sending out when it seems at the moment that the priority of the academy is simply to flip, to sell for accounting reasons, for business reasons, and it has nothing to do with footballing reasons, when you can essentially sell a better player, a more versatile player, for someone who, even though is good, isn't as good as the player that you want to move on. Listen, if this is purely for business, obviously using AI, computer logic, this makes a lot of sense. So right now, let's end things by discussing another massive story involving what the hell are we planning to do with strikers this summer? Because as we've known for the past 48 hours, it seems like we are now moving away from Victor Osimhen. Now let's understand the current context and new reports surrounding this story, but as confirmed by Romano, who's alluded to this fact for the past few weeks actually, there are currently no talks or negotiations in place to structure a move for Victor Osimhen, with or without Romelu Lukaku. And right now we just aren't planning on making a move for Osimhen, and that's for a few reasons. Now, Morano revealed that part of the issues were, number one, the most obvious one, Victor would be an incredibly expensive buy to get done. And maybe some of us felt like without Europa League football, without Champions League football, do we have the money to finance a move like this? Because Victor is earning around 12 million euros a year. For being one of the top strikers in the world, naturally he'll get some of the top wages. And if we were to sign him, he would destroy our current wage model. You'd have to let go of guys like Raheem Sterling and a few other big ones to try and structure his wages into this current model. And that's going to be very hard when you include things like signing on fees, agent fees on top. It's an incredibly expensive deal to get done, especially when you don't have Champions League football. But the other more obscure, kind of silly reason is the fact that due to his age, I think Victor's only 25 years old, he might not fit the current model. I think that's a bit silly. We didn't sign Nkunku when he was 23, did we? We're not about to sign Tosin Adarabioyo when he was like 21, are we? You know, he's 26, approaching 27, I think, you know, during this season. So that's a silly reason. That doesn't make any sense. As a few of us have been saying throughout the season, if we had some players who are about to pre-peak included in the squad that has players who are not even near that pre-peak phase in their careers, that could give us a better balance within the team, right? So I don't agree with that. But I feel like, can I really accept the news that's fully coming out? Because is everything completely making sense? Now, I want you guys to hear some of my thoughts on this. I think number one, Victor, as we know, is set to miss the next 4 to 5 weeks out with injury. Now that he's injured, is there really any need to force through and spend and prioritize all your time on structuring a deal for him now? I don't think so. And if that isn't your plan now, it seems like there's then more pressure now on Napoli to try and play ball, because they've now just announced Antonio Conte as their new manager. Conte's a demanding manager. He wouldn't have signed for Napoli without some guarantees that he may be backed in certain ways, and having that possibility of working with his former striker in Lukaku, in which he won the Scudetto with, I can't imagine Napoli turn that down anytime soon. Recently, Napoli have appointed Giovanni Manna as the new sporting director. He comes from Juventus, and as we've known for the past month or 6 weeks, Manna was the one to initiate this negotiation of involving Lukaku in a deal, plus money to try and get this deal over the line, because he knew that he was set to work with Antonio Conte. Feels that pieces are finally falling into play. I mention this point because there was something really tangible behind these links suggesting that Lukaku plus money for Osimhen could be the play and could be the way things are done for this deal to get finalized. But as confirmed by Fabrizio Romano, he mentioned that from his knowledge, as it's been the whole time, we've never been interested in offering Lukaku in a player exchange to bring down the values of any deal. As we've said from the end of last summer, there is a release clause in his deal that's 38 million. If you want to sign him, you must pay the full release clause. Lukaku is earning over 300,000 a week. We have to subsidize his wages when he gets his loan moves. He's incredibly expensive. If he isn't coming back to us to play for us for next season, we need to guarantee that we are selling him. We need to guarantee a sale and bring that money in, especially in a season where, yet again, we don't have Champions League football. So right now, the ball is in Napoli's court, because I think quite clearly Conte would like to work with Lukaku again. Yes, there were talks around his wages, structuring the deal, but Napoli have that money. And ultimately, this falls on my final point, and that's the fact that, as we've known throughout this whole time, Victor's sale was important because Napoli must reinvest the sale money into the team. That's what they're hoping to do. Hence why De Laurentiis was hoping that a club would pay the full release clause for Victor, so that money could be reinvested back into strengthening a Napoli team that is slowly on the decline a bit now. Realistically, there aren't many clubs that can finance a move for Victor. You're looking at Paris Saint-Germain. Reports now suggest that they may be turning their attentions now to Kvaratskhelia to replace Mbappe for next season. Arsenal are another club that have expressed interest, but it comes down to whether they could afford to structure a deal like this for Victor. That would be interesting. I think technically they could do that, but would Arsenal spend yet again another 100 mil plus to bring in a player this summer? Who knows? Now it falls down to us, and we can't dismiss the facts and realities that yes, we have been talking to Victor and his team for over a year now. We can't forget the efforts made by John Obi Mikel, Didier Drogba, enticing him to sign for us. We can't forget that Victor and his agent know exactly where Victor is set to be for next season. Personally, I don't know if this deal is completely done, as it's been reported. I just feel like it's more of a timing thing. And right now, we can use that time and pressure against Napoli. Because the longer this gets dragged out, where Victor's future isn't secured, where Victor hasn't been sold because Napoli are pricing him out the market, that's the longer Napoli can't reinvest that money back into their team. And the last thing De Laurentiis wants to do is to have another terrible start to the season like they did last season. With Victor set to miss the next 4 to 5 weeks out with injury, again, there is no need to force anything right now. Let's wait and see what happens. But I guess in the meantime, having more time gives us the opportunity now to really assess, okay, are we about to do what we originally set out to do, which is put all our eggs in this Osimhen basket, because we have ambitions now to guarantee Champions League football and start fighting for league titles. Now listen, if there was one man I would go for to replace Osimhen, like my dream option, I don't even have to announce his name. You guys are seeing this beautiful man on the screen beside me, but yeah, him, yeah, my lord, that'll be clear. But realistically, this is where we discuss Benjamin Šeško. And what's interesting is that, as reported by Plettenberg today, Šeško may have said yes to Arsenal, but saying yes doesn't mean anything. There's no context behind the reports. No report said that Šeško was desperate to play for Arsenal and he's really excited. We didn't read that. All he said is yes, because let's be serious, when it comes to deals, it's easy to agree personal terms with any type of player to get any encouragement of a move. That don't mean they're the favourites. So, with that type of news out now, does that force us to react? Because at the moment, Plettenberg is suggesting that Arsenal may not even be in a rush right now to fully sign Šeško, as it was reported. Arsenal have yet to make a final decision on Benjamin Šeško. And could that reason simply be Arsenal may decide to pursue Victor Osimhen because I think they're in a better financial situation to be able to afford to buy him. They don't need to buy 4, 5, 6 players. With Arsenal right now, they need to buy 1 or 2 players to just improve the overall quality of their team. And if we're allegedly at the moment out the race to sign Victor, this could give us a free run at signing a Benjamin Šeško, with Arsenal maybe going to explore an opportunity for Osimhen, because as we know, Osimhen wants to come to the Premier League. If he ain't coming to us, he's clearly going to a rival within the league. Arsenal have forever been hovering behind the scenes when it comes to assessing the situation with Osimhen. So again, I feel like there's still a lot more stories to come, but I'm starting to get this impression that Šeško's future and Osimhen's future may be entwined, and they don't even realize that now. So my friends, they're the 2 big reports out today. Share your thoughts and opinions. How are you feeling about things? Let us all know. And on that note, I'm Nini FC. This is Blue Lions TV. See you all later. Cool.